Hey everybody, it's Glenn back in this video with the Star Wars The Force Awakens Black Series Guavian Enforcer, because enforcing Guavia is a dirty job, so somebody's got to do it, so why not this guy? Looking at the packaging back, and let's take a second to read the bio and find out way more about him than we do watching the movie. The security soldiers of the Guavian gang wear high-impact armor that makes them stand out among other deadly criminals. So here he is out of packaging, one of the figures released before the movie that had us all wondering, is it an important character? Should I buy it? Is he the next Boba Fett? Well, ultimately, as it turns out, the Guavian Enforcers are blink and you'll miss them characters. Not that that automatically means it's a bad figure, as a kid, some of my favourite Star Wars figures were barely seen in the shadows of Jabba's palace. And at least the Guavian Enforcers got more screen time than Constable Zuvio. Anybody spot him in the movie? Taking a closer look, and his boots look very flat and plastic compared to the rest of the costume. That's been subject of a nice heavy paint wash, which with toy company budget cuts you usually only see on customs these days. Overall, the character design does feel quite derivative. I'm getting a little of a Deadpool flavour, and then something else that's really jogged my memory of a figure my brother had when we were kids. And a bunch of Googling has cemented my memory of the red shadows from Action Force. Perhaps it's just coincidental, yet the likeness is undeniable, isn't it? Now, the bio mentioned high impact armor, yet it mostly seems to be a fabric costume unless that's some Kevlar type material. If you look really close at the costume, you can see what looks like a circuit board pattern sculpted in slight relief. That and the head sculpt makes me think this is perhaps a robotic or cyborg character. And as such, inset in the middle of the face, we do get the sculpted detail of what appear to be mechanics. Yet, if two human eyes are behind here, the helmet doesn't seem to be a practical design for them to look through it. But that practicality aside, I like the dehumanizing, ominous feel it has. For accessories, he comes with two blasters molded in dark grey plastic with some silver paint dry brushed on to heighten a sense of reality. I like this one on the right here because of its Tommy gun look. If you remember, the bio alluded to these characters being enforcers of a criminal gang, and as such I imagine the Tommy gun style weapon alludes to 1930s mobsters, who are in my mind synonymous with the weapon. Now looking at articulation, and his head rotates side to side, he's able to look down really quite far, and then he's also able to look up a decent amount too. At the shoulder, his armour does jut out, inhibiting some of the articulation, but the arm does rotate at the shoulder, and then it moves up to just more than a right angle to his body. Rotation at the elbow, and then this is hinged, moving the lower arm to a right angle to the upper arm, and then there's rotation again at the wrist, and then his left hand is hinged on the inside and outside, but then I should point out that on his right hand, this is hinged at the top and bottom. His pouches there are hiding some rotation, but then his upper body doesn't really move forward or backwards any. At the hips, his belt and various straps there do inhibit some of the articulation, so the legs don't really articulate out very far, nor do they move particularly far forward and barely back at all. There is upper leg rotation, followed by a double jointed knee. Then at the ankle, his feet are hinged, moving backwards and forwards. Then it has that ankle rocker pivot that I love. Yet owing to the limits of the hip articulation, he's not able to take full advantage of that ankle pivot, with this being his widest stance possible, which is still pretty functional. So I actually think it's a pretty decent action figure. I think ultimately, in the eyes of many, his lack of screen time might hold him back. But perhaps the Guavian Enforcers will be fleshed out in episode 8. If not, the Star Wars universe has become so much bigger than what we see on screen, and I'm sure you'll be able to track down over time novels and comics which feature the Guavian Enforcers. Anyway, click the video on the left if you missed my review of the Black Series Finn. Alternatively, to witness the tip of the iceberg of all things Star Wars, click the video on the right for my Star Wars The Merchandise Awakens. And I hope to see you next time. Bye.